Juan?
This is Juan Escalante. My Twitter handle is over
Hello.
at Juans. That's 3 A's for y'all.
And as I've said, this is intermediate Twitter. If you find yourself being like really confused, Twitter for Beginners is happening at the same time. You can leave this room and go to Asher Huey's amazing Twitter for Absolute Beginners, and I will not even know that you left, and I will be glad that you made the proper decision for your level. So who the hell am I? I am the program director of New Media Mentors, and I am also the co-founder of Organizing 2.0. So this crazy thing you're in is part of my baby. I feel like I'm one of the OG Twitter people in the labor movement. Back in the day, like literally 2008, I was one of the folks telling folks in the labor movement, which is most of where I've worked, that they really need to start being on Twitter. And we've made it a long way. We have so many more people in labor talking on Twitter right now, but I want to see more of that. I want to see more from you guys. In this webinar, we're going to help you, whether you're a union person or whether you're an activist about any progressive issue, we're going to help you boost your Twitter game to the next level. And I'm joined by Juan.
Is there a lag?
Maybe, but I see you with your petitions in a photo.
There we now.
That's a ton of petitions.
I see myself now. Hey everyone, my name is Juan Escalante. I am an immigration advocate, an immigrant advocate, and I am also a digital strategist. I've been doing immigration work for the past 13, 15 years, and the reason why I enjoy doing digital work is mainly because there was a period of time when I did not have some of the protections that I enjoy right now, which is basically something called or known as the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Program, also known as DACA. That allows me to have a driver's license and be shielded from deportation. So I dove into digital, specifically federal and state policy out of a sense of necessity. Growing up in Florida, driving is a necessity, not so much a privilege as much.
Yeah.
So nevertheless, I've been doing federal and state work at a variety of different organizations, Forward US, America's Voice. I've also done some slight consulting work for nonprofits specifically. That's kind of like my main arena here. And a lot of the work that I've done has been profiled in a variety of news and media outlets. I include this photo that's a little bit dated. You can see basically this is one of the main actions that I led back in 2015, pre the Trump era, and trying to get him off Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah, that was an amazing petition.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So when I'm not doing Organizing 2.0, I'm leading digital strategy webinars, including the kinds of stuff that you'll be seeing today. And I was lucky enough to bring Juan in on this because he's developed a new tactic in Twitter that he started really casually. And I said, holy, this is a great idea. Come join my webinar and you can tell everybody about it. So real quick, a little bit of my Twitter origin story about the power of the platform. And I know we're crushed for time, so I'm going to hurry it through. But a number of years ago, there was a primary for New York City mayor, and some of us noticed that Rocky Horror Picture Show star Susan Sarandon seemed like she was about to endorse Christine Quinn, who I, in an unofficial capacity, did not want to have as the nominee. So I reached out to a number of other activists who cared about the paid sick days bills that she was stopping and said, let's band together and let's tell Susan Sarandon that Quinn is the reason we don't have paid sick leave, because she probably doesn't know that. And so through that back channel organizing, we all tweeted at her. We kept our tone kind. We assumed that Susan Sarandon had the best intentions on this. And she responded to us really quickly and said, oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. Not long after that, she decided to endorse a different candidate for mayor. Let me tell you, there is no other reality where I would be tweeting at Susan Sarandon. And that was one of the things that made me a Twitter lifer. Ultimately, organizing is organizing. And what we're doing on Twitter is a piece of organizing. And organizing is built on building relationships. Twitter is not the place that we go to talk to everyone on our membership base. Twitter is not as popular as Facebook, but Twitter, the people who are on it, is literally every journalist in the world, corporations that we want to target, elected officials that we want to target, and pop cultures around conversations around popular culture that we might want to interject ourselves into. And we will be looking at all those different ways that we use Twitter to reach them in the webinar. Ultimately, when it comes to Twitter, I ask people to say, why am I sharing what I'm sharing? And why is somebody else going to want to share it? One of the reasons that people are like really saying like, oh, people just share pictures of food and nobody cares is because it isn't meaningful to people. But you know who shared a picture of food on Twitter just the other day, and it did get shared because it was meaningful, was opening plenary spokeswoman Yulin Yu from the State Assembly. She posted a photo of herself frying dumplings and put it in the context of her work keeping Chinatown businesses active and thriving during COVID. That's a photo of sizzling delicious dumplings that people care about more. But she also did it from her own personal Twitter account. It came off very conversational, very personal, and also made me very hungry. And those are good triggers to make people click retweet to share something. One of the big mistakes I see nonprofit organizations making is that they are not actually following their supporters. They're not actually seeing what their members share. If you don't invest in communicating with your supporters and looking at what your members share, then they're not going to be having a conversation with you. You're going to be basically having a telecast. So a quick poll that you will answer by throwing the message into the chat function for the session. Do you have an active personal Twitter account? I want to know. I and Juan, we both have very active personal Twitter accounts. And it's incredibly powerful and useful. Like, look, no matter where I work, I am able to bring a Twitter profile with over 10,000 followers with me. And whatever issues I'm writing about, whether it's comic books, which I do a lot, or immigrant rights or digital strategy, like whatever I'm on, those people are there and engaging with me in it because I've made that decision. Important thing for intermediate folks is, I don't know if you're aware about the Twitter algorithm. Most people, now advanced users may not be doing this, but most people have their Twitter account set up so that when they first log into Twitter in the beginning of the day, it shows them what tweets Twitter thinks it cares most about and will show them to you. Now, many of you probably have your Twitter timeline set to show just the latest, but regular Twitter users haven't. And that what it's showing them instead is the Twitter algorithm delivering what it thinks you're most interested in seeing. So the one tweet from my friend was from 6 hours before, another tweet from a candidate I supported was 10 hours before, but Twitter in both cases said, in case you missed it. Twitter thinks I care about it because these are people whose tweets I'd interacted with a lot. Now, Adriel Hampton did a cool little experiment you can read more about on Campaigns and Elections website for how to build his Twitter community. He developed a list of Twitter users that had more reach than they did. And once he started to follow them, he turned on notifications. And these only are for people that were on topic about the issues he cared about. It was not random people. When he started to have Twitter alerting him about these key people tweeting, he would jump into their messages and respond. He would not say, well, actually, or come off like a jerk mansplainer. He would say, oh my God, that's a really important point. When my group tried this, we did X, Y, and Z. Like, he actually engaged in a real way. And then periodically you want to take a look at what's floating in your algorithm. That means turning off your show me the top tweets first thing and having it, that means turning on show me the top tweets so you can see what's doing in the algorithm, because the algorithm will tell you what's performing well in your space. One of the cool, I might go back to here, but I want Juan to talk a little about Twitter DM groups and the strategy that he developed there, because as part of building your Twitter community, you want to build your Twitter DM groups. So take it away.
So much for inviting me here, and I want to make sure that I kind of preface this conversation on this portion of the training by excuse me, stating that some of this is still in trial and error methods. I've done this basically, as Elana mentioned, as a kind of veteran of this platform, and I've been doing it, for the past year or so with relative success. So I figured I would join here and give you guys some tips. Basically, we want to make sure that if you are an intermediate or advanced user in here, the kind of issues or the kind of things that you talk about on your account are perceived as trustworthy to some degree or another. People essentially follow you because they may think that you have influence and or additional knowledge on issues that they may care about. However, oftentimes we don't engage with our following in the ways that we often think outside of just retweets, likes, and just quoting their tweets. Sometimes, in order for us to make those kind of conversions and ask people and organize them and have a solid ask for them to take action, is for us to familiarize with themselves with their interactions within our account. And what does that mean? I noticed, for example, that Elana would engage periodically with me, specifically around immigration content. I had not met her prior to the first and only time I met her over at Netroots last year. But I did think that she had some potential in caring about some of the issues. I went on her profile, so I read her bio, and I said, you know what, this is a person that I want to engage with more. Not just because of her following, but rather because I do think that she's a trustworthy person that would like to connect more about this issue that she cares about and that I care about. We may not agree on everything 100%, but this is the thing that binds us together. And so on, I did with a bunch of different people, not just Elana, but basically immigration attorneys, people who work at Planned Parenthood, and kind of like a mishmash of individuals that I put together in a DM group. You can have up to 50 people in this group, and essentially, as an experiment, said, you know what, I'm just going to call this cool people, because I think these people are cool, and they need to know each other. And without any sort of like prompt or anything, I just decided to add them. Now, granted, I knew and kind of vetted myself into this space by researching who these people were, and a lot of them are also veterans of the platform. So I didn't think that there will be a lot of disagreement in here, but trial and error is what essentially we're going for here. We can go to the next slide.
Oh, real quick, I should have said this. DM stands for direct messages.
Yes. So in your absolutely.
Okay, keep going.
So we can go to the let me see. Yeah, we're on the next slide. So unlike publishing, and I mentioned this at the top, essentially in traditional forms of engagement with Twitter, DMs are a little bit more trustworthy because you are expanding your reach beyond the public-facing persona that your account dishes out to your thousands of followers. What does that mean? It's a fancy way of saying that when someone DMs you, and I mean this in a very, casual and adequate and proper way, not in a creepy way, they may essentially be presenting themselves to you in a much more person-to-person reach here. That kind of demystifies the person that's behind, 1,000, 2, 3, 10, 4,000, following account, or tens of thousands, and so on and so forth. And it puts kind of like a human element behind it, as long as they're not a bot, of course. And this kind of interaction goes above the ones that I previously mentioned, mainly because it breeds trust. It means that you, as a user who follow these individuals, or are taking note of the people who follow you, are taking the extra step and the extra time to kind of bridge that digital gap and speak to them directly in a private DM group. On a private DM channel. And these interactions can range about, just about anything. Hey, can you retweet this? I know that you like the immigration content. To much more, it's like, hey, I know that you like immigration content a lot. Like, is this something you're willing to get involved, or are you involved in your community? And just kick off a conversation. Once you're a little bit more familiarized with that person, you're essentially able to acknowledge, their interests and bring them into these groups. And so on and so forth. That's essentially how you start building trust. Is it time consuming? Absolutely. But just as much as it isn't, a lot of the good work that we do as organizers, the time investment into this kind of interaction and later on conversion is well intended and meaningful if you know how to do it and successfully bring that person into your issue or into the topic of conversation that you want to bring. And I'll have a couple of examples here in just a second. I just want to make sure that I repeat what I said at the top, is that results may vary. This is very much so in what I like to call not even beta, but like alpha. So just take a lot of these groups that I'm about to show you with a grain of salt, because they do have various degrees of results. And I'll go over like the successful ones and the not so successful ones. Part of my job as a digital strategist, specifically at the organization that I work for, is essentially to expose people to the issue of immigration. Oftentimes we think of just immigration as something that the president likes to target, specifically people like myself, but rather it's to essentially bridge this gap of knowledge. It's a very thorny, polarizing, emotional issue that and sentiments, and my job is to talk to people and figure out what we have in common. Do I think that XYZ policy is like the utmost solution. Probably not, probably yes, but it's for us to build a middle ground. So just as I mentioned here.
Well, one of the things I think that you did really well, and sorry to jump
Go
in, one
ahead.
of the things I think you did really well with Cool People is you brought in people who, you included some people who were just general big hashtag resistance, as you say, Twitter people who are progressive, but maybe not really focused on immigration. So I feel like it was a cool way to get people who were sort of Democrats on Twitter who were likely to agree with the issue, but probably were maybe just focused about like being anti-Trump broadly. And you were able to sort of educate them and get them more invested in immigration as an issue in particular. Because I totally saw some what I would have described as like more generic hashtag resistance accounts that I would not have necessarily associated with doing immigration work. But because you brought them in with cool people, they totally started posting about immigrant rights more because you gave them good, trustworthy content to share.
Exactly.
And you were doing it like as a person rather than as an institution.
Yeah. And I think also
so like they were primed to be pro-immigrant, but there's so many issues at the same time. And this, you primed them to pay attention to your particular issue.
Totally. And I think also like, that's a good point, right? It's like also like what's in a name, right? I didn't title the name of this group like immigration experts or immigration advocates. I just titled it Cool People. And underlying this, that was very much so my intention, to bring about like people that I enjoyed content that they published, but I knew under their content, they also cared about the issue that I wrangled with. There's an ACLU lawyer in there, Elana's there, there's Planned Parenthood folks in there, and we just have conversations, not just about immigration, but rather some people check in about how they're doing. Some people check in about the issue. Some people ask upfront, like, can people give me a boost on this because it's really crazy for my job or it's really crazy for my issue right now. Once I did that group, I tried to replicate it across. I was like, how much more can I do? I started this cats focus group, which is the window next to it, to a variant degree of success. I thought that by bringing cat owners that I know, I actually don't have a cat myself, but I love cats. And so does the internet. So I just figured that if I brought like the 15 people that I know who have like cats that I've met together into a group, that it would just become like this insane place where people just post funny photos of cats. And to be honest with you, it has not taken off the way that I thought. I think it's just, people just enjoy sharing it more publicly than in this group to debate or discuss, essentially cat memes and beyond. So again, results do vary. And we can go to the next slide here.
One thing I should also mention is some people have their direct messages turned off, often because they've been subject to harassment before. Personally, my DMs are only open to people who I follow and who follow me back. And so what I'll do is, do you guys know Blair Imani? She's like a major queer Muslim feminist. And so she's gotten harassed left and right on Twitter. But I reached out to her around something we both cared about and said, hey, I'm sorry to bother you. I really need to DM you something, which I really did. There was a specific thing I needed to DM her. Do you mind following me so I can send you this information about our rally? And she followed me and I was able to DM it to her. So sometimes if somebody has their DMs turned off, if you come off well when you message them, they'll turn it on so that you can reach them.
Totally. And I think that's also part of it, of this level of trust in here. Unfortunately, private accounts are not able to be added to these groups as well. And there's, people go private for a variety of reasons, but I will be remiss if I didn't mention that there are some private accounts that I really wish were public, but they have their reasons. I'm not trying to convince them one way or another. I just want to make sure that I go over a couple more things in here, and I think I already covered a chunk of this slide in here. But the point of these groups, right, ultimately is for us to essentially build community online, right? If you are able to start bringing in your followers and assign them some sort of trust by speaking to them directly via DMs and later bringing them onto the group and later introducing them to other like-minded people, and I say this very cautiously, of course, because again, the more specific you drill into an issue, the more disagreement you could essentially brew, and then your group may fall apart. So I want to make sure that I level the conversation here. A lot of the work that I do is very general, right? I don't try to force my point of view on anybody, and I don't create these groups to try to like brainwash anyone. I need people to understand that the work that I do is important. They believe it's important to some degree or another because they know that I'm a trusted source. But ultimately, I want to make sure that I bring in generalities in here. Now, that may not sound too well for some people, but again, part of the work is in identifying the people who are either hardcore believers in what we're selling, and people who are, yeah, I care about that issue every now and then, but also I like cats and funny GIFs and funny memes. And you might be the glue that hold those people together. And by you bringing them in together, you introduce them, and you possibly generate more people like them. So anyways, I talked about time, and I'm wrapping up in here just to make sure that we get to our program. I know that we're crunched for time, but the more time we spend, you have to watch your timeline. You have to watch your followers. You have to make sure that you read their profiles, and you make sure that you find your voice, right? Like, this is not just so much about your following, it's as much as it is about you and the way that you come off to other people and the way that you present yourself. We always talk about, like, you wouldn't say something in public that you wouldn't say something online that you wouldn't say at the office, right? And that carries over just enough to the digital, to your digital self, that it makes it so important, the way that you carry about your conversation, that people will ultimately find you as a trusted source. I wanted to just make sure that.
But I would say one thing is that I think one of the biggest mistakes nonprofits make, though, is that they sound like a machine on social media, and you need to sound like a person. Now, I don't throw around. I'm very proud that a lot of people have no idea which candidate I supported in the primary. So, like, I'm good at not being a jerk, but I always sound like a person. I'm conversational. I do use curse words, and like, I don't know, like, you have to still sound like a real person. The nonprofit groups that only post like press releases and stuff like that to Twitter, nobody engages, nobody cares. And nonprofits who don't follow people back, again, like, that's not organizing.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep
absolutely.
talking.
And I want to make sure that I inject this in here as well. So, for example, the groups that you're seeing on your screen right now, right? They are essentially made up of immigration advocates across those different states that are listed there, right? I blocked their names, obviously, for privacy purposes, but I wanted to make sure that I highlighted something in here that I left out, and thank you so much for bringing that, Elana. This entire conversation that I've had so far has only been carried by individual accounts. I have not tested this in organizational accounts. We did find some success very late last year by bringing organizational accounts, but what I always find is that nonprofits or trusted sources, like very much so bulkier accounts that have a brand behind them, take a little bit longer in the rapid response moments that we often want them to activate, because they have permissions and guidelines, and there's someone's always a boss that has to approve something right before it goes out. And I have not tested it there. I think that's kind of like the next big place in here, where there's always going to be a moment in time where we're all in alignment, and that's just like the perfect way for us to work together. But again, I haven't gotten there yet.
But speaking of permissions, as someone who has been the Twitter account, card holder for Make the Road New York and for a number of labor unions, I did not have to go to anybody to get my tweets approved unless it was about a very narrow range of very controversial things. So obviously, I knew if I was tweeting from the C3 account, which is, a nonprofit, I couldn't tweet about candidates I was endorsing because that's illegal. But if there was something about an upcoming action or an op-ed by an ally or a partner, I could just hit retweet on that. I didn't have to get that approved. And if you're still struggling to get approval from other people in your organization to be able to tweet stuff from the organizational account that are things that are very core to your standard work and don't involve things that you might get sued by a corporation over, that's not functional. You need to work out a process where you're allowed to tweet without having 25 layers of approval, or else you will never be able to react to people in real time. Hashtags, I want to hit this real quick because we're getting close on time. Hashtags need to be clear and short. And you can't use any spectral punctuation. And sadly, it doesn't like accents, which is really unfortunate for Spanish speaking. I would have wished that I had gone through all of the slides that I've read to add hashtag ORG20, which is the hashtag for this conference. Put that hashtag on all your tweets. And one of the big mistakes nonprofits make are they just go and they invent a hashtag for something without looking to see if there already is a popular one. Remember, if you're just talking and nobody's there, then you're just talking to yourself. So search for popular tags. And one of the ways you can do that is by going to hashtagify.me And I was trying to figure out what the hot hashtags for the New York primary were. So I kept guessing things that could be a New York primary hashtag. And then I saw whichever one got the most usage and started using that one for talking about the New York primary. Yeah. So this is so important. Never use more than 2 hashtags for a tweet. Studies show tweets with more than 2 hashtags are shared less. Do not do it. If you want to make up your own hashtag, then what I do is use yours and then use a popular one. Okay, so when the whole thing with DACA came up, we realized that most people who weren't working on immigration would not know what the heck DACA stood for. And we wanted to start using the framing hashtag here to stay to talk about how immigrants are here to stay. But let me tell you, most people who are in the DACA program weren't using the here to stay hashtag and hadn't heard of it. So what we decided to do would be to use hashtag DACA, which all the people who were young immigrants who actually were covered by DACA were using to talk about their own situations, and here to stay, which was the activisty hashtag we invented. We used them both together. And that is the only way to launch your own hashtag and get people to pick it up, really, is to also be using things that other people are already using.
Elana?
My favorite thing, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. There was a request to go back now 3 slides.
This is Hashtagify Me. It's a site to go and look up hashtags to see which hashtags are popular.
Oh, one before
It'll
that.
show you the
One more before
popularity.
that.
This? Folks can send me, if you message me your information, I can share these slides with you also. Activists doing voter registration to people who were waiting in line to see Black Panther was the best thing ever. They invented the hashtag Wakanda the Vote, and they also got to use Black Panther hashtag, which was trending, of course. So they're using a literal trending hashtag plus a really catchy, smart hashtag they made up to talk about voter registration in the context of the biggest movie in the country at the time. All about that. How often should you tweet is one of the most common questions I get. When I'm live tweeting a conference, and generally speaking, live tweeting a rally, don't tweet more than every 15 minutes unless you want to begin a thread, right? So if somebody was live tweeting what we're doing right now, you would write one tweet saying, hey guys, I'm about to live tweet Elana and Juans hashtag org 2.0 session. They started by talking about some cool things. And then you could reply to yourself and build a thread from there. But I wouldn't start a new tweet more frequently than once every 15 minutes. You could just overload people that way. Now, the exception to this is if you're live tweeting a rally and somebody just got arrested, you can tweet more frequently. Like breaking news, just go ahead, tweet more than that. But generally speaking, don't have your org account tweet more than once every 15 minutes. But with a thread, you can have a tweet and reply to yourself and just keep going, and you don't have to wait. You know, it's good to spread your tweets out throughout the course of the day. Let's say you've launched a new op-ed or a new study, tweet it in the morning, tweet it in the afternoon, tweet it in the evening, and you can even tweet yourself once. But, you know, maybe remind yourself to tweet every time you've got a new Facebook post coming up. Okay, kids, why was this tweet popular? Why was this particular tweet by 32BJ popular? Can somebody who's looking at the chat, can my moderator tell me if anybody has some thoughts?
Seen so far.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. Sorry, yeah.
Sahar says SEIU used a meme.
Yes.
Cool looking. It's weird because an organization doing a teen thing, graphic, relatable meme that's short and sweet.
Yep, that's right. So this was a popular and is still a popular meme format. And it's really large, so it's easy for people to see it. And the statement that they put on it is like one of those things that you read it and you're like, yes, that's so real. You said it. Thank you. Like, you need to be able to talk like a real person. And this was like a bumper sticker with sass, right? And if you can't make your own art with like typing on these parentheses and stuff, Lord knows I can't, you can find this stuff online, copy it, and put your words in it. You just like search for ASCII art, ASSCI, I think is how it's spelled. Is that right, guys? And then you can put your own text in it. But yeah, like look how many retweets this got from a local labor union. It was great. Do that. I like tweet graphics more, use different meme types, cartoons, credit the cartoonist when you can by tagging them. GIF it up. Okay, everybody make an account on Giphy.com and you can start making your own GIFs if you make a sandbox public account. Animation catches people's eyes. And even if you're not making your own GIFs, you can use GIFs to illustrate things. Like when I announced that the Org 2.0 schedule was live, I used a GIF from Inspector Gadget to say, go look at it. GIFs catch people's attention. They make your tweet larger. Giphy is really easy. I like to use it to put text over an image.
One of my best like GIF interactions. When Donald Trump was inaugurated, somebody made a GIF of Transformers, the cartoon from the 80s, where Megatron basically visits the Lincoln Memorial, takes Abe Lincoln down from the chair, and then he sits on the chair, and I'm like, welcome Donald Trump as our new president and overlord. And that just went nuts. So I'll share it on the chat box in case people want to look at it.
Yes, that's totally it. Pop culture is how people understand the world around them. And like that's a sort of, it's a cartoon. Like GIFs are the modern political cartoon, and you can make them even if you can't draw. However, it's really great if you can draw, right? Actually, getting people to draw stuff for you is one of the things I like to hire people for, and sometimes get youth volunteers to do. Horizontal images are important for Twitter because you'll cut people's heads off if you don't use them. Don't use stock photos. They look like cheap, stupid, dumb. One of the things I like to do is I like to make my own stock photos, meaning I would go with my members to a rally, take a picture of some members where the specific things on their protest sign weren't necessarily super specific to that rally. And then I was able to use it to promote other rallies. Like I would not use photos of people at an immigrant rights rally to then promote a rally about a completely unrelated issue. That would be dishonest. But if I have people at one immigrant rights rally for my organization and I'm promoting the next one for our organization, then yeah, I can use that photo. And it's way better than any stupid stock photo. Vertical and square video performs better on Twitio, performs better on Twitter than horizontal, as much as it kills me as a former film student. When you shoot video square, it can look good on Instagram and Twitter and everything else. So that can be the way to go sometimes. And notice that you want to have the subtitles written on when you can do it. It makes everybody's watching stuff with the sound off. It also makes things more accessible. Yes.
Elana, there was a question about something you said a minute ago. What was that Elana said we need an account on along with using Giphy?
Giphy.com, GIPHY.com, to make your own GIFs. Sorry, I'm hoping this message isn't to me. It's not. Okay, good. So there's a workshop tomorrow on TikTok that you should go to. One of the if you're trying to communicate with young people, otherwise it doesn't really matter so much. Live video tweets. You're actually better off recording a video and posting it as a video rather than live streaming from Twitter. But sometimes they do it. You need a really good signal. Live tweeting conferences is one of the biggest, fastest ways to grow your Twitter feed. So if you're not live tweeting #ORG20, you're missing an opportunity to make your Twitter account really popular.
And big events like presidential debates. I can't tell you how many followers I've gained out of that because your opinion just so happens to be the opinion of other people. And by you live tweeting that kind of stuff, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like your Twitter, like the next day, if you nail it, for example, if you use a good reaction or GIF or anything like that, you might show up in a list the next day. I remember one day I photoshopped the head of Angry Cat on Paul Ryan as Barack Obama was giving the State of the Union, and I got picked up by Mashable the next day, and I don't even know how many followers I get from that.
I think also like I live tweet the Grammys and the Oscars with like my own political leftist commentary. People really like relate to that too. Consider newsjacking. One of the cool things was when they had Rent Live, the folks from ACT UP New York knew that Gilead Sciences were going to be having an ad on Rent Live. And so they said, hey, Gilead Sciences, we saw your ad for hashtag Rent Live, which was trending at the time. Here's our petition. Tell everybody to break the patent. Hashtag break the patent. Look at it. 2 hashtags, Rent Live, which was trending, and break the patent, which was the Twitter hashtag for their campaign. And they tweeted at the corporation. They promoted their petition that was easy to sign right then and there. Huge. Also, tag other accounts when you're doing things together. Everyone's got coalition members. Everybody has people who they are just always doing the same rallies and events with, co-conspirators. When you're posting pictures, you can tag up to 10 other accounts in it. And it would be so much easier for me to see, oh, my ally tagged me on this. I can just hit retweet and we're done. Only tag allies that you know are okay with it. Like if you're doing a candidate endorsement rally, for the love of God, do not tag a 501c3 organization. But you know, when you're in similar kinds of coalitions, you can do that. Important emoji etiquette. Yellow does not equal everyone. Yellow equals white people because The Simpsons established that yellow equals white people because The Simpsons are white. If you are a white person like me, do not use a brown emoji to represent yourself. That is like digital blackface. It took me a while to realize I could use white hands and that wasn't racist, but I don't use the white fist because people might take that to be white power. When in doubt about the political acceptability of an emoji, don't use the emoji. But do use emojis like to help make things more visible, colorful, and fun when you can. Consider engaging in more popular culture moments. Now that everybody's stuck at home, I want you guys, if you're like doing labor stuff, host a live tweet party for Sorry to Bother You, or that new the new movie about delivery workers by the British director. Damn it, I'm forgetting. There's so many. Find out what shows your members watch. Have them live tweet it together with you. These are things that you can do together online to build Twitter community while everybody's stuck at home. Oh my God, we have 3 questions. Tell me, what questions should we be answering? Moderator, oh great moderator.
2 questions, and I am scrolling back to them. Please hold.
Mm-hmm.
So one question was, can you talk about how you establish and publicize a DM group?
Juan, take it away.
Publicize it. I know it sounds like it makes me feel or seem like I'm like the ruler or the king of the group, but I want to make sure that I filter a lot of people, so I'm very careful about keeping reporters, about keeping trolls out. So I'm very intentional about making sure that I do some vetting in here. And I always kind of like, whenever I bring new people, I talk to them about the group first. Are they a good fit? Do they feel comfortable about it? Will they want this kind of interaction with other people about it? And I think being very intentional about doing this one-on-one chat is essentially the foundation to make sure that you have a healthy community that doesn't essentially eat itself from the inside out.
Yeah, it's important to have public and private spaces. I love to teach people about Twitter, and I have my digital fundamentals and digital best practices webinar coming up. And I would love to get you guys in there to learn more and get more detailed training. I could talk about this all day. I have a training on Instagram tomorrow that I think you'd be into. The Instagram one is like for new people to Instagram. I think a lot of people have more experience on Twitter than they do on Instagram. I'm so sorry. One of my speakers for the upcoming session is asking for my help, which is why I'm a little bit like, But oh yeah, I am always online at ELANA_Brooklyn, as you can see. I'd love to talk Twitter strategy with you. I guess my ultimate message is that Twitter is for organizing, and you can only use it as an organizing tool when you put in the labor to communicate with people, respond to people, and act like a human being online. One of my personal boundaries I try to do is I talk about my opinions, but I don't talk about my feelings. So I'm not someone who's going to tweet, oh my God, I'm depressed. That's not, I feel like you have to have some sort of personal boundary, but Lord, will I tell you what I think about literally any movie, TV show, in the universe. And I think the fact that I tweet about comics and pop culture, how much I love New York City, I tweet about vintage fashion, and I tweet about not just the issues that the organizations I'm working for work on, but issues that I care about in general, are all part of what makes my Twitter account popular and compelling to people. So be yourself, be a full human being, and even your organization can be engaging in more conversational tweets and in more cultural Twitter stuff than it probably is right now. So thank you again. For more tweeting, training on Twitter, Facebook, anything like that, get a hold of me, newmediamentors.org. I do private coaching and webinars. I love you all. And take 15 minutes to stretch, hydrate, and get ready for your next session. Thank you. And thank you, Juan. I love your experimental tactics of awesomeness.
Talk to you guys soon.
It's so true. Talk to you guys later. Bye. Yes, I'll put my email in the chat.
Folks, for everybody who requested an email of the slides, it's best if you go to the Sched link and sign up for this session, because then you can have access to all of them, and we won't miss out on anyone's email.